right, so your PragerU video, Make Men Masculine Again. Why did they have a man do that? Why did they have what was the idea? We're going to have a woman talk about male masculinity.
I think it's because you're seeing a lot of women talk about how terrible toxic masculinity is and say, oh, men, they don't even know how hard it is, and they've oppressed us for so long. We just need them to take a back seat, and so we can kind of step up and do our thing. And so I think they wanted the perspective of a woman to say, hang on just a second, women actually do, not only do we like masculine men, or not even necessarily traditional masculinity. I'm not talking about like riding a four-wheeler. I'm talking about taking responsibility for your actions and taking care of your family, taking care of that provision and protection that men are so good at, and I think better at than women are.
So you can still wear a nice shirt, let's say.
Yes.
But you should be able to take care of your family.
Yeah, it's more internal traits than anything else, and the actions and the habits that you have, the responsibilities that you take. Women do care about that, and actually the complementarian relationship that men and women have had forever has worked really well. It's worked really well. Not always. I mean, sometimes it goes over to a patriarchy, and that's not good. I don't think oppression of women is good, but the yin and the yang, the back and forth, and the complementarian relationship that we've had has worked. And I think you kind of needed to hear a woman say that.
So why do you think the left's trying to destroy that?
Because they think egalitarianism will equal equality. So it's equality through homogeny, which is part of why abortion is a really big thing that they fight for. If a man can physically walk away from an unwanted pregnancy, a woman should be able to too. I mean, pregnancy, the ability to get pregnant is really not one of the only things, but probably the biggest thing that makes a woman different. And so if we get rid of that through abortion, and then maybe men and women really will be the same, and maybe they really will be equal, then there'll be no abuse, no oppression, no patriarchy, things like that. But I mean, men are always going to be physically stronger than women, and there's always going to be bad men and bad women. So oppression won't stop, abuse won't stop, egalitarianism is just going to make, or not, I shouldn't say egalitarianism, but sameness is going to make things more confusing, not better.
So I know you do public speaking too, and when you go to colleges, do you find you have any tricks on how to wake up, say, some of the lefties that are, you know, at least open to some of these ideas, but they're kind of like, she must be the bad guy, but I'll at least go and sit in the back of the room?
Well, what I try to do is my message is typically, when I come usually speaking to mostly conservatives, is that, okay, you're hearing that you're crazy for believing in things like border security, for being pro-life, for being pro-capitalism, but here's where these ideas come from, and here's how they have worked, and really only over the past 10 to 15 years have we heard all of this crazy intersectionality, identity politics stuff that they are acting like is mainstream. And so you're not the extremist, you're not the radical, you're not the one that's out there, you're not the Nazi and the bigot. You believe things that Americans have believed since our founding. Yeah. And they have a really good history and a really good basis. And so I don't know if that has necessarily ever changed a leftist mind, but it is something that's different than just talking points and saying the left is stupid. It's saying, hey, we have good ideas, and you have a right to believe they're good ideas, and you have a right to defend these good ideas. Really, the most disrespectful or the craziest, I always get very respectful, great liberal students that come and listen and ask awesome questions, I think. The only time that has been like, oh my gosh, I can't even get a word out without these people screaming, is when I was at UC Berkeley and I spoke to...
Been there, done that.
Yes, and I spoke to a class, and the professor was awesome for asking me, and I actually thought when I went in there, I was like, I'm gonna be really tame. I'm gonna be really tame with what I say. I'm not gonna throw any flames or anything like that. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even, it was like they had never heard a conservative idea. They had never heard someone who wasn't a liberal utter a word, and it was irrational. It was irrational. That was really my only experience where I was like, this is crazy. They've abandoned thought.
Do you, in a weird way, blame the baby boomers for this? Because it's their kids, right? Like, or it's the end of their, it's the young end of their children. Like, so in a weird way, you can't blame the 16-year-old who now gets into college, you know, a couple of years go by, he's been indoctrinated in high school, gets to college, gets slammed with more of the stuff. I have sympathy for him. Well, when they're yelling at me, I don't have that much sympathy for them. But like, I have sympathy for that condition because they were just thrown into that. Yeah. Not that you're looking to blame somebody, but if you had to sort of figure out where this whole thing started, where would you go?
Well, the baby boomers really like to talk about how terrible millennials are, and I agree with them to some degree. I mean, a lot of the stereotypes that people have of us entitled and apathetic are true. But I remind them, like, we were raised by someone. We weren't raised by wolves. And I don't think it's so much that parents probably told their kids to be entitled or told their kids to be spoiled. I don't know if it was a lack of values that were taught in the family, but also there was a significant change from the time our parents were kids. Like my mom, for example, was, she was driving to the liquor store to get her dad beer when she was like 13 years old. I mean, car seats, like that just wasn't even a thing. I mean, everything was a lot more free to the time where we were kids. I remember there was like a new law that said you have to be in a car seat until you're like in second grade or something like that. Everything changed. Everything became more safe, and everything shifted from like the latchkey kids who were coming home and fending for themselves. That's mostly Generation X because both their parents had jobs, to kind of these helicopter parents and these everybody gets a trophy, or this everybody gets a trophy mentality that we had in school. It's not like we didn't have competition, but it was that everyone gets some kind of reward. I would know I'm terrible at running. I'm so slow. And yet, in every race that I got honorable mention. Honorable mention. I got something. And that's how we were raised.
I swear to God. So I'm Gen X, so I'm a little older than you. But I swear to God, I remember being in 3rd or 4th grade field day. And I was a scrawny little kid. I was not a good athlete. I became a good athlete later. And I remember getting a slip at field day. I did not place. I didn't get a medal. And I remember getting some sort of participation thing. And I'm not kidding. I remember as a 3rd or 4th grader thinking this is nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, why would you give me this? I felt shitty. I felt bad.
Yeah.
I sucked at whatever we were doing, like a slow bike race, and I sucked. So
and
why
you knew
give
you
me
didn't
anything?
Get it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yet we've sold this as if this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's parenting, it's technology, it's values, it's purpose, it's so much. I mean, you can't deny just the effect that personal technology had on millennials. And I mean, we had iPhones from the time that we were probably 15. We had cell phones even before that. We had MySpace, Zanga, if anyone remembers that. You had Facebook.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, I think it was before MySpace. I didn't have it, but I remember some people did. You had AOL Instant Messenger. So you had personalized technology from a really young age that told us that everything is about you. Everything is focused on you. And then the older that we got Netflix, we got Uber Eats, we got all of these things that made life really convenient, instant gratification always. We don't know anything other than Amazon. I don't know how to read a map. Like, I don't. I remember my dad trying to teach me how to read a map in high school. I was like, yeah, Dad, okay, I'll remember this.
The main thing you have to know about a map is how to refold it. The rest, it's like, whatever. But if you can just fold it back in the way it came out.
Well, I don't even know how to do that. So, and I think most millennials don't. And so this instant gratification, things should be easy for me, as they are in the technological world, has really affected our politics too.
Do you feel that the technological part of this has actually really screwed up a generation then? Like, that there's obviously a lot of goodness, and we're doing this on YouTube and all of that, but that it really, like, we handed everybody, it didn't matter what age you are, we all got handed this incredible technology that opened the world to our hands, but especially if you're a 15-year-old being handed that.
Yeah.
That's a lot to give a kid.
Yeah, I want to hesitate to blame all of it on technology. I also see a loss of values in that we're not only the most progressive generation, but we're also the most irreligious generation. We're the biggest generation of religious nones, N-O-N-E-S. And I do think a lot of us are wandering, looking for truth, not really knowing what that is. Not me, but a lot of people in our generation. I don't know if that comes with technology at all or if that's connected, but it's certainly a factor in why I think millennials just don't have any center. They don't have any grounding, and they just think that their center is themselves. And we're told this all the time on social media. I mean, your favorite fitness blogger, your favorite self-help author is just love yourself. If you just look in the mirror in the morning, you tell yourself you're awesome, that you're enough, then you're going to be fine. And that's what you need to do. Everything's about my happiness. So you cut out the toxic people in your life. You cut out the things that you don't like, the things that make you sad, and you just do you.
Yeah, you're going to be pretty lonely.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
after you chop it all away. You know?
Right, and I mean, what do you do when the self-love runs out? What do you do when the self-esteem runs out? What do you do when you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, I'm not that awesome, and I haven't accomplished that much. Should you just continue to coddle yourself, or should you do something about it? And the millennial is told, coddle, you'll be fine. And then you have someone like AOC saying, well, we're going to provide economic security for people who are unwilling to work. And so If you just want to be a watercolor painter, even if you suck at it, you should just keep doing it.
Yeah.
So
There's
that's
not
where
a
we
lot
are.
of money in watercolor painting generally.
I
anyway.
wouldn't know because I'm not good at it, but I can imagine.